and welcome to ControlTalk, now your smart buildings video casting podcast for the week ending August 27th, 2023. This is episode 425, where we talk about all things HVAC, smart building controls, including sales and marketing. And speaking of sales and marketing, I've got a fantastic guest coming up in just a few minutes. His name is Brian Collins. He's from Op System Solutions from New Zealand. Brian's an interesting cat. He's from the United States, lives in New Zealand. They've got a global perspective on things. They got a really cool product you want to hear about. But also, Brian and I really chop it up on the marketing side. Brian's brilliant when it comes to marketing, really understands brand awareness versus moving the needle through innovative marketing. So something you're going to want to definitely check out. Doesn't matter whether you're a tech in the field or in charge of marketing, there's something there for you. But hey, before we get to this week's show, a quick word from our sponsor, ABB. So ABB is such a cool company, man. They have so many different products and different product offerings. And most of us know them for variable frequency drives. At least I did. They do a lot of metering, a lot of cool stuff. And obviously the building AI is a really cool product as well. I had a chance to meet Julie Patrone and some of her team at Realcomm Omicon. Good folks. Be sure to check it out. The other cool thing about ABB is they have a online magazine. The sustainability issue is out. You can click on it, download it. It's beautiful. A lot of great ideas. Best part, it's free. Really good read. I encourage you to check that out. And one thing I'll be breaking next week, I don't know about you, but it seems to me like new construction is slowing down a bit. Maybe a lot, talking to some people. In my experience and being in the industry, when new construction slows, retrofit grows. So I don't know whether you've been working on your retrofit game or not, but it's changed a lot. There's a lot of cool new products out. There's a lot being driven by ESG and other codes. So I can't tell you about this right now, but stay tuned to Control Trends because I'm going to drop a very, very cool thing that's coming up in the very near future. You're going to have to register for it. So as soon as you read about it, click on the link and register. Okay. Without further ado, my guest, Brian Collins. All right, man, I'm talking with Brian Collins, Op System Solutions from New Zealand, the real down under, man. Man, thanks for taking some time to come on and talk with us, buddy. What you been up to?
Oh, man, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be on. It's been really busy lately, getting ready for AHR. We went last year. Office Solutions went last year, my boss and I, and we had a great time. We were supposed to meet you. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance. We had some issues. I got
a raging case of gout. I was down there looking for you, and all of a sudden my foot swelled up like a basketball, man. They had to roll me out of there. So I'm sorry I missed you then. But hey, man, we got Chicago. But go on, man. We're going to see you in Chicago for sure.
I can't wait for Chicago. So yeah, we're getting ready for that. We're going back, but we're gonna have a booth this time, and
nice.
It's my first time going. I've been to a lot of shows, but I've never actually exhibited before. And designing and building and planning this I've learned a lot. It's been a real challenge from a marketing perspective, but also just a practical one. You know, as being an international exhibitor too is really interesting because there's the time zone difference and the scheduling with the flights and everything else, but then there's little things like the metric system versus the imperial system, right? And will this work there, and the adapters and that kind of thing. So, but learned a lot, and we're really excited about the show and about our booth and about some of the activities we're going to have, which hopefully we can talk about, later on in the year.
No, for sure. So you're going to be coming from summertime to Chicago in wintertime. And I tell you, Kenny Smyers and I used to talk about it all the time, Brian, because we'd have the Control Trends Awards along with AHR. And every time we'd have it in Chicago or in New York, you never knew who was going to make it because there was always a weather thing going on, right? You would think, as smart as they are, they would have this thing like in the spring or the fall.
Exactly.
I don't understand that. It's nuts. But man, I'm really excited for you. This is going to be great to see you again. Hey, for our audience out there who might not have sort of caught up yet, tell them about what you guys do.
Okay, so OPSA Solution is we're a hardware and software developer. And we make hardware. We make a touchscreen, a small touchscreen, like a 4-inch touchscreen. Our sort of flagship product is a cloud-based app that does after-hours HVAC scheduling. It automates that whole process. So for tenants who are in a commercial building who want to schedule heating and air outside of normal business hours, so like 8 at night or 7 or 6 in the morning, most of the time people have an after hours program, which involves, recording that in a spreadsheet, billing it to the client, figuring out all that stuff. This app just does one thing, and that is it automates all that. So people can, they can order it on their phone. We got a mobile app. They can order it on their desktop, wherever they're at. They have internet, and it works with any BMS, and it kicks the air conditioner on when it's supposed to, and it records all that.
Oh, it records it, so you can track the time and then bill people for tenant override, right? If that's part of the lease.
That's right. It'll track it. We do automated monthly invoices. You get one. You get one for every tenant each month, and then you could just check the balance and then send it on to them, and then they pay it. And for people down here, especially who want building rating systems, we use Neighbors. I know you guys use Energy Star and Leads up there, and it can be really important for something like that because in order for the rating system to work, they need to figure out your core hours. And what they don't want mixed in are after hours running, right? And so it's a handy way to deduct that because it does record it for you, and it's an easy way to go, okay, you had 1,600 after hours for the year, take that off the top, and we won't penalize you for that. We won't count it against you. That's what we find, and that is a benefit for it.
And so same with Energy Star. So in other words, you're getting penalized. They don't know if they don't know that you've got after hours tenant running, and they just see the total hours. If you can't produce a document showing them that those were actually after hours, you get penalized on your rating.
That's right. Yeah, because you'll be shown as using more, as less efficient than you are. Now, Energy Star and them, they calculate their ratings a little differently than Neighbors does in Australia and New Zealand. But we find that people in New Zealand and Australia find that valuable with our product, with 7 Knox.
That is something else. Well, I got to ask you, dude, man, down under, with Australia, New Zealand, man, it's a long way to come to sell a tenant override system. Tell me about that, man. What's the plan? What's the long-term plan here?
Well, the long-term plan, of course, is to we're doing fairly good in Australia, and we're doing well in New Zealand. We're trying to break in, or we have broken into North America. We have a customer there, but we're trying to expand, obviously. And the strategy is just to sort of become, hit the main shows to start off. So AHR, which we're going to be at this year, we want to use that sort of as a launching pad. And we are. Like I said, our booth is going to be there. We're going to be there for the first time. So we're running a real awareness campaign. Nobody knows who we are, except for whenever they see me or on the show or read an article or something. So it's going to be a lot about that and just becoming involved in the broader projects, whether it's Monday Live, or the show, and supporting that and supporting, causes like decarbonization or reforms in hospital controls, that kind of thing. It's just getting a seat at the table. So we like to show up with a covered dish. We're not there for a handout. When we show up, we're coming to bring something to the table, whether it's our energy or something we can do. That's our strategy.
No, I love it. Well, I applaud you because, it is somebody that's breaking into markets other than New Zealand. You came to the right place. Meaning that Control Trends, has a global presence. I mean, you could talk to Mike Marsh and the team at EasyIO when they came from Singapore with their product originally. It just got rolling because we have a great community as a global community. So I guess the follow-up question that would be, are people from, say, India or Asia or Europe that watch the show, is the product available to them too?
Yes. It's like I said, it's cloud-based, so it's available everywhere. Ideally, where we want to get it is it's going to be a subscription-based. It is a subscription-based, but the purchasing of it will be completely through our website, right? And we'll be able. Right now, we're able to integrate with your BMS if you're using Niagara without a site device, which we normally require a small little controller, right? If you don't use Niagara, you kind of have to use that to have the system work. But eventually, we want to get to the point to where it just works. You sign on, you purchase it for the year, and then you do a few things in the background, and you're connected. It can work just as a general scheduler too. If you want to keep up with, one of our clients uses it just as for scheduling any room, for example. Right. So you have a common room that is accessible by, let's say, 20 tenants, right? And it's a common meeting room. And so they can use that as a general schedule for that space and only heat and cool that area when you need to.
Yeah.
And we're trying to look towards the future and where we can evolve this product. And we see it a lot of opportunity everywhere with these decarbonization policies that are coming online, and people are going to need to track their usage. And this is just one component of it. And like I said, it can be an important reporting component for ESG in the future, we think.
Obviously, 7Knox is a really, really cool product, man. And I'm so excited people are going to get to learn a lot more about that at AHR. In the meantime, we got a link on the site because you are one of the advertisers on Control Trend. So thank you for that, brother. Shameless plug here. How's that experience been for you?
Oh, it's good. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge platform. I'd say that you were, you're one of the few social media influencers, right? In the industry, and that you have a big voice. And I think, your podcast and I'm kissing some ass here. Your podcast,
you're gonna get a discount next year. Keep going. I love it.
But I mean, you can tell the podcast and whenever you're doing your interviews, especially I think when you're really in your element, are at shows like AHR, and you're talking and it's live. But you garner a big audience, and I can see in our I think it's biweekly our reporting for ad reporting stats, which are very, very helpful to see the clicks and the impressions that we're getting. I can see that the traffic's going up, and I can see that what you're doing is working, and so we're really excited to be a partner. And it's really helping us because, like I said, we're in an awareness campaign. And if you want to be in an awareness campaign, then you go to where people are looking. And that's here. That's Control Trends. And that's you. And where the hell you're walking around with your microphone.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. What Brian's referring to is if you have a banner ad on Control Trends, you automatically get a report with the number of clicks and the number of impressions. So that can be mailed to you once a week, once a day if you want it. But so that's a pretty cool feature of it. And then, it's funny you mentioned the social media thing because I had a big client that came on, and the director of global marketing tracked me down for this company. And she goes, my board of directors has been after me for the last 6 months to find a social media influencer that we could work with. And we were looking all over TikTok and everything. And I finally found you, and I realized, even though you're old, you're the social media influencer in our industry. So we want to work with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about writing an article on this quote that I had the other day. It was about consumers and designers. And it was actually on Monday Live. And they mentioned it several times. And it was a quote attributed to Henry Ford, I believe. And like I said, I was surprised I'd never heard this. But apparently he was supposed to have said, if I had asked them, meaning the public, the general public, when he was making the Model T, if I had asked them what they wanted, they would have said, I want a faster horse. And I really got to thinking about what that meant. And it's a really interesting idea. There are a lot of implications to that idea. The first one being, does the general public, from a marketing standpoint, I found it interesting. Does the general public really know what they want? Or is it really up to designers? And I think even... who else said
Jobs.
Steve Jobs said something, right?
He was really big about that. He didn't want any input from anybody on the outside.
So he had a similar attitude, right? Like, it's hard to design a product in a focus group because people sometimes don't know what they want, was his, I think, I'm sort of paraphrasing what he said. So from a marketing point and from our industry, what does that mean is what I started thinking about.
It's a great question.
So in the context of what I heard it was around how should we design these things and how much input do people need? And the implication is that people don't really know what they want until they see it. And that is true. But from a marketing point, I think what was missed there was that although people might not always know what they want, they will always tell you how that you can sell it to them. And Ford, started looking into his marketing strategy. He wasn't a big proponent of marketing in general. They didn't do a lot of like national marketing. They did some. Their dealers did. Dealers did a shitload of marketing, but he didn't. He didn't really believe it. He thought it was a waste of money. But I think the idea I took away is that's exactly how I would have sold the Model T. It's a faster horse. And the people will tell you what the best way to approach them and how they can understand something conceptually if you will listen to them. And that's a lot of value. Now, that's a different take on it, right?
No, dude, yeah. I mean, keep going. I got to hop in on this when you're done because this is great. I love it.
Go ahead. What do you think about that?
Well,
idea?
no, I think it's brilliant. You know, Jobs. The other thing that was interesting about Jobs was he was never. You know, he defeatured everything that came. He defeatured it and he charged more for it. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, in marketing parlance is like an impossibility, right? You're going to defeature it and you're going to charge more for it. But I think what he had the ability to do, and you know, so I'll use one of my sayings, which is, you know, if you're going to shoot a bird, the problem with focus groups, in my opinion, is if you want to shoot a bird, you've got to shoot where the bird's going. If you shoot where it is now, by the time the bullet gets there, you've missed the bird, right? You have to lead the bird. So I think focus groups can be useful, but not maybe in designing the product. It can maybe be useful in how you market the product, right? How you sell it. But the design, and many it was Jobs. It was, this Dyson guy that does the Dyson, you know, vacuum cleaners. Are you familiar with those and all? Yeah. He's got super unique design. Richard Branson was another guy. He didn't ask people, you know, the Virgin Airline guys and records. He didn't ask people what they thought. But, you know, he understood what was needed, I think. And you can't be all things to all people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Henry Ford, I mean, you know, you can have whatever color you want as long as it's black. I mean, he only painted in black for how many years? You know, he wasn't giving people a lot of choice. And you and I know this from a psychological standpoint. I mean, there's an optimal number of choices to give people, right? In other words, I think it's 2 or 3 max. If you give people over 3 choices to make, they won't choose. They just won't. I mean, this has been psychologically proven over and over and over again. So you can sort of imagine in a focus group, it's difficult because, you know, if you're paying attention to your customers anyway, you already know what they don't like, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're polling your people, the people that your salespeople, they're talking to the customers, it's a tricky one because you would think that the safe money would be let's do customer focus groups. Let's get voice of customers. Let's build what the customers want. But, you know, the most successful companies in the world, and talking about Apple, Virgin, Dyson, and Ford, flew in the face of it. Now, I'm sure there are companies that were successful that did listen to voice of customer, but I don't know, dude. I mean, you're a marketing guy. I mean, how much?
There's a lot to unpack there. I think, well, I don't think that either one, both of these are true, but they may be more applicable in specific situations. I mean, if you compare Apple products to the Model T, and you said there's only black Model Ts, right? You know, in the limited choices. I mean, you know what an Apple product is just by looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, they all look the same. They have the same styling, the same rounded edges, the same sleekness, right? That is part of it. And they're sort of a Model T in themselves. And there's not a lot of variety, which I do agree. People can have way too many choices. And most of the time they do, right? In our industry, right? There's a ton of choices.
Right.
And people get overwhelmed very easily. And people psychologically like to have guardrails on their choices because, you know, there are only so many digits in a phone number that we can put there until we can't handle them anymore. And so that's a real world issue. I think where focus groups come into play is how does this work for you practically? How does it solve a problem? Not not maybe necessarily as well as is this attractive to you? Do you find this inspiring?
Well
Right?
said. Yeah.
Because someone like Steve Jobs, one of the reasons, or whether it's like say Quentin Tarantino or someone who is making something really unique, is really a professional consumer, which is what a
Yeah.
marketer is.
Yes.
We are a one person focus group. Some people have, and we have all have different experiences, but we bring that to the table and go, yes, I like this as a consumer. Not, I don't like it as Brian. I like it as a consumer. And I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of people would like this, or the opposite, they would find this annoying. I do that all the time with marketing, whether it's a pop up banner or too frequent emails. And I put that in the back of my mind. I go, when it comes time for me to do that, I'm not going to go there because I know that that's annoying. So I guess my point is that marketers are professional consumers, and that we sort of use that same intuition that we want to say maybe is creative, like Steve Jobs had a style of his own, right? It's something that that Microsoft really envied, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you really hit on it, because I think if I was going to look for what was in common with Steve Jobs, Henry Ford, Richard Branson, and the guy that founded Dyson, they're all marketers first. They understood the marketing. And like you said, the Apple products look cool. I mean, Steve Jobs obsessed about how they looked, right? There's a look to them. There's a feel to them. And, the technology wasn't any better than anybody else's, but people were convinced it was, right? Because
Right.
People will justify anything if they like your product. So I think it gets back to the marketing people. We've talked about this. The marketing people in our industry, I mean, they're the ones who are going to differentiate. You said it a minute ago. There's not that much difference between a Honeywell controller, a Johnson controller, a Distech controller. There's just not. I mean, there are some differences, but the perception of the differences is what sells the product, not the actual differences. And who's responsible for those perceptions? It gets back to, how it's marketed, how it's presented, how it's branded. And, one of the things that I question and wonder about is, how do you know if marketing is good? And I think one definition is, well, because I'm working with a lot of clients now. We talk about how are we going to differentiate you, whatever. And I get back to one of the sayings. Maybe we can talk about another time, which one of my teachers used to say: different is not always better, but better is always different.
Yeah, I hear you say that a lot. Yeah,
I ask people all the time, well, how do you know if marketing's good or not? And I think a lot of it is, well, if it looks like everybody else's is good, right? Or, if you got a big brand and our marketing looks like their brand and they're a big brand, so it must be good. And I wouldn't say any of it's bad. I don't look at any of the marketing in our industry and see that it's bad. And, if you're protecting a brand and trying to maintain a brand, I think the companies in our industry do a great job. If you're trying to move the needle, I'm not sure we're hitting on that. I'm pretty sure that if Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Henry Ford, or him sat down with any of these companies, they'd be going, okay, the product's fine. We're not messaging it right.
It gets to a point where when you have, I think that marketing and a product follows a natural progression that's built into the competition. So let's take the car and Henry Ford, right? In the beginning, there was a very little competition, and then as more people entered the automobile market, then the competition changed. So originally, it was about how dependable was this? How did it function? How easy was it to use? Right? These are the choices I'm making if I'm having them. And then once everything became more standardized, and we built the product to a point where we're just making tiny little adjustments, right? To increase our value proposition, to make it different, to differentiate our product. We're making tiny ones that are barely registering on the needle of the average consumer. And now we're playing with brand loyalty and all this stuff. Then you enter, I think, into a phase where you talk about Apple, whereas you try and differentiate yourself not based upon practical things, but on aesthetics. And that's all he did, right? He used this to identify with an idea of being modern, professional, sleek. You've got it together. And that's what these products make people feel whenever they hold them, use them, are seen with them, and differentiate yourself. So,
Yeah. No, I want to hop in because you said something. You said the F word, feel. It's how products or messaging make people feel. That's why they buy. I mean, Jobs is Apple's most successful advertising campaign of all time. Didn't have anything to do with the product. They showed a picture. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci and Einstein and 4 or 5 different people. They played it at the Super Bowl, popped up on the screen, and then it was like, think differently, and an Apple logo. That was it. Had nothing to do with the product. Because at that particular time, the product, they hadn't done anything new with the product. But they did the think differently, and it drove their sales.
You have to look like and follow the rules, the unspoken rules, right? Whether it's the way we dress professionally that says, hey, I'm supposed to be here. Hey, you're supposed to read me. These signals are supposed to be interpreted in a certain way as professional, right?
Right.
And so we all come to the table, whether we're putting up a banner ad or whether we're going to building a booth for a trade show. They have to have certain expected elements to them for people to go, okay, that's what that is. But beyond that, in order to differentiate yourself, you have to put something special. So you have to look exactly the same, but different.
But no, I think you're spot on with that. And let me preface by saying to all our marketing people listening, Brian and I'll be the first to say, what we're talking about doing is not easy. I mean, the people, I mean, people spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and still don't get it right. So this is not an easy thing to do. But see, I think part of it is, and I talk to a lot of my clients now, you really sort of need to have a face of your organization. So what Apple did, Apple had 2 faces. They had the product, but they had Steve Jobs, black turtleneck, blue jeans.
Right.
I mean, nobody else was doing that at these events. And they made the event, I mean, the calling card, people would line up for days to get into these events where he would announce new products. So he redefined how the products were going to get introduced. He redefined how he was going to look. He became the face. Now, obviously, when Steve passed on, they've shifted that, right? They still have the event, but Tim Cook is no, I mean, he might be a Steve Jobs, but to his credit, he's not trying to be Steve Jobs, right? So it's like, I think too many, I wonder, let me put it this way. I wonder with a lot of these big companies, not just in our industry, but in a lot of industries, it's the face of the company. It's like, they got a picture of the logo, but they don't have a person. To me, it's like, especially in our industry, I mean, LinkSpring's a great example because you got Mark Peacock. You think of LinkSpring, there's Mark Peacock. He's the face of LinkSpring, right? So that allows Mark to use his skill, because Mark's an ex-marketing guy too from Madison Avenue back in the day. But, he's skilled enough that he can sort of, well, and Nate and Cindy Crawford and all that kind of stuff. The supermodel airs in Studio 54. I'm getting Mark in trouble with his wife again. Sorry, Mark.
Oh, my gosh.
But, hey, Connie, that's what happens when his wife's name is Connie. That's what happens when you snag a superstar. You're going to run into that. But, so you take somebody like Mark, who's the face. I mean, you look at Mark, man, he's all over, in terms of LinkedIn. He's writing articles. He comes on Control Trends. He goes on Ken Sinclair's site. I mean, he is the face that is able to promote the brand, right? So people are able to associate an individual with that. You get some of the bigger companies, and it's like, well, there's nobody. I mean, you're looking at products, and maybe you're looking at an image of somebody that they bought off, images they bought off of, the internet that, show happy people around a conference table or whatever. But I don't think that works. I mean, I think it's safe, but I don't think it works. I think, especially with the younger generation, they're looking for a connection. They want to have, there was this one company, a big brand. I won't mention who they are, Brian, but back in the day, man, I had this guy, so I was first shooting the videos and I was posting them on YouTube. They had a guy that came in and did a lunch and learn for mechanical contractors. And man, this guy, his shirt was untucked. He was a little bit overweight. He had the hat on he was a mess, but he was one of them. They ate it up. It was the best. I mean, I got more hits on that. People that I showed it, the mechanical contractors could not get enough of this guy. And the brand called me up and they said, take it down. We don't like his look. you got to be kidding. He's relatable. This is, out of all the vendors, this guy is the most relatable. He should be the face. We're not doing it. Take him down. We don't like the way he looks. So he sent me somebody else. He's got his shirt and tie on and all this. And it's clear the one guy had been in the field and done it. People knew it. So the market they were trying to sell to loved this guy. The guy with the shirt and tie, man, we didn't get anything off of that.
You're right about the new generations, and they're way more savvy about and their relationship with ads and traditional marketing is way different from most of us and our understanding. Right, we all grew up with that, and so the suit and tie is the traditional way. Right, it's a traditional ad.
Yeah.
He is an advertisement. He's a billboard. Right, and they're going to present a certain level of professionalism, just like I was talking about. These signals that we carry, this meaning, but he's not effective. And he's not effective because consumers today see that as a sign of inauthenticity.
Yes.
Right, for one, they don't want something that looks exactly like everything else. They're way more likely to take a chance on something else that looks completely different or sounds completely different than our generations and older, certainly older, right? So it frees up brands to take chances. Unfortunately, there's a lot of brands, established brands, who don't want to do that because there are other people who will look at it and go, "What the hell's going on?
Yeah,
what are we doing here?" And they will revolt against it. But there will also be other consumers who go, "Oh, this is nice, change, a breath of fresh air. This is interesting." Now the question is, which one of these is more important, right? And it goes back to your idea of. What was your saying? I thought of my saying is you don't go where the puck is, you go where the puck is going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always lean towards a younger generation because I know they will eventually become consumers, but I have to maintain that an older generation, a generation that will respond to more traditional ads, are actually paying the bills right now. So there is a leap to invest in faith. An investment in that, and there's some risk, but I mean, what's life without some risk, right?
Yeah. So let's ask our people to reach out in comments. Do you think Henry Ford was A, full of shit, or B, spot on, or C, somewhere in the middle? We'd like to know what you think, man. Brian, thank you for doing this, man. This was awesome, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. How do people get hold of you guys, man? Website.
Oh, you can get us at, you can look us up on opsissolutions.com, or if you want to check out 7 Knox, our after hours scheduler, it's 7knox.com.
You can go to Control Trend's website and click on your ad too, and that'll take you right there as well. The 7 Knox ad. Man, Brian, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you, man. Let's do this again soon.
Yes.
All right, there you go. That's another week on Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast. Special thanks to ABB for sponsoring the episode, and to Brian Collins for his wisdom and insights as always. So until next week, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. And as Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the ride. And as Kenny Smyers used to say, see you next week.
Slow